You may call your next witness.
United States going to call Terrance Sibley.
Thank you.
Raise your hand, please. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead and have a seat. Mr. Sibley, once you're seated, you can remove your mask, and then if you'll make sure to keep your voice up and speak into the microphone.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And then also, we have this point, okay? This is the button right here. Okay. Look down here. Look right here. See the button?
Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing today?
Good. If you would, please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury by telling them your full name and then spell your last name for the court reporter, please.
My name is Terrance Sibley, S-I-B-L-E-Y, last name, first name, T-E-R-R-A-N-C-H.
And Mr. Sibley, how old are you?
I'm 56.
And are you employed?
Yes, I am.
How are you employed?
I work for Worthy Construction.
You what?
I Worthy Construction,
Okay. And
remodel homes,
all right. Do you work for yourself, an independent contractor?
independent contractor, basically.
Okay. How long have you done that?
Probably for the last 10 years.
Okay. Where were you raised? Where were you born and raised?
I was born on the west side of Akron.
Okay.
Kind of really split time between the north side and the west side. Grew up as a kid on the north side, but then moved to the west side. And from there, from that time.
All right. And have you, in your 50, you said 56 years
Yes, sir.
old?
Yes, sir.
In 56 years, have you lived in Akron most of your life?
Well, I left for a little while. I moved to Atlanta for 10 years and Portland, Oregon for 5, and then I came back in early 2000.
Early 2000. Okay. And growing up, did you play lots of sports?
Yeah, that was our thing.
All right. And your father, was he a coach?
Yeah, he, since I was a baby, he was always involved with Pee Wee football. He was commissioner for a long time.
Okay.
Off and on for years, but he was always involved in athletics.
And your family is pretty good at sports, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty good at sports.
You've got a nephew that's playing at Pitt?
I got 2 nephews, one at Liberty and one at Pitt.
Okay. So, through sports, were you familiar with the Lindell and Greg Lewis?
Oh yeah, very, very familiar.
And so tell us about that connection.
Well, my dad, in the late 60s, early 70s, my dad was real heavily into bringing the young men up into sports. Wherever they needed to go, he traveled, made sure they got to football practice and stuff like that. And Greg was a little younger, so Greg was always traveling with my dad and them back in the days. And then Lindell was always he was older, so he participated more on the coaching side and helping out in that particular area, as I can remember when I was a kid.
All right, and I guess we should clarify, Greg and Lindell, how were they related?
They're brothers.
So it's Greg and Lewis and Lindell Lewis were
Yes,
brothers.
sir. Yes, sir.
And Lindell was the older brother?
Yeah, he was the older brother.
Okay. So in relation to you, how much difference in age was it?
Oh, wow. I watched, I'm 50, Greg would have been 15 years older than me.
All right.
So Lindell had to be at least 20 plus years older than I am.
All right. So you were a little guy.
Yeah, I was a little bitty guy.
And they were playing in
Yeah,
sports because your dad was coaching.
Yeah, because my dad was coaching.
And you went along.
Yeah, I went along.
Okay.
I had to go along.
Okay. And eventually you played sports too.
Yeah, I 2 years at St. Vincent St. Mary's and then 2 years at Bookville.
Okay. So through the years after your youth, obviously you moved away. You probably didn't have much contact with the Lindell and Greg.
Well, I used to, whenever I would come back, me and Greg was as I got older, me and Greg was connected a little bit more than Lindell was at that time.
All right, at that time.
Yeah.
And so then at some point in time, your father, is he with us still?
No, he passed away in 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
And so at some point when your father passed away, was there a void then for you?
Well, yeah, I fell prey to the streets a little bit. off and on drug usage type thing. And Lindell he always used to comfort me. He was there for me a lot. I could go by there, I could sit and talk, and he kind of really talked me off the bridge a little bit. So,
All right.
and I owed him a debt of gratitude as a big brother at that time because, it's just somebody, I always like really talking to older guys, and he really helped me along.
Lindell.
At that period of my life.
So Greg seemed to be more of a friend, but Lindell was more
Greg,
of
now Greg was more into construction work, and my brothers them pouring concrete, and Greg was heavily into that until he retired, but he stayed connected with my brothers and the rest of the family through that particular alley, but once I connected on with Lindell, me and Lindell became real close, I could always call him, and I could always talk to him and stuff
All
like
right,
that.
and so I guess my question was, you and Greg were more friends and work related, and
Yeah.
Lindell was more of a father figure?
Yeah, he was more like a mentor to me, pretty
Okay.
much.
And so Greg's construction work, did that help you when you came back in getting jobs?
Oh man, he used to call me all the time. I used to go help him pour. Whenever they had a big pour, I would jump in, move the wheelbarrow around, push the mud around and stuff like that for him.
Okay. And now when you talked about Lindell, and he would talk to you and I guess mentor you, how often would you spend time with him? And before you answer that question, kind of give us a time frame of maybe when that started and how it, I'm sure it wasn't exactly the same through the years.
Well, I probably want to say 2010, 11. I was, struggling a little bit.
All right. Well, okay. Let's jump to that then. Tell us about your struggles.
Well, addiction.
Okay.
It was addiction. The streets, addiction. It's it's just the two went together, and then and Lindell was the type of person like if you needed him, he'd be there for you. Whether it was financially, a place to lay your head, somebody just to come talk to, somewhere, even to go eat.
All right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of times that's how I would stop by, talk to him, sit on the porch with him for a minute.
All right.
And he helped me out a lot. He did. He really did.
And so that addiction, did that lead to some felony convictions?
Yeah, I got quite a bit of it.
All right. Well, tell us, since 2010, tell us about.
Okay, in 2010, I caught a case in 2010. Well, I had quite a few cases, but a lot of probation.
Well, what was the 2010 conviction for? Do you recall?
I'm thinking it was a theft case or something like that, a minor theft case or something like that.
All right.
And I got probation for it, and then my dad got sick in 2000. Well, he got sick in 2008, but in 2010 he needed physical help. So my brother was always living in the house with my dad. And so we needed a second person. So me and my dad didn't see eye to eye for a long time. So he mustered enough energy to call me on the phone, and I moved in and started helping him out physically and stuff like that. So, and then my mom got sick in 2000, but she was sick like from 2005, emphysema. She had that asbestos from Chrysler in her lungs and stuff like that. So. It became a tough period for me, trying to stop getting high, using drugs, and then dealing with my parents in this capacity. The responsibility was different for me. It was new for me, and I struggled off and on. So I kept catching little cases. But then the last case that I had, I really kind of grew up a little bit in the 2010 case, but then I fell back out to addiction when because my mom passed away a week before Mother's Day in 2012. And then my dad passed away like 2 days after Father's Day in 2012. So it was kind of really tough. And then my probation officer, we kind of really didn't see eye to eye at that particular time. And so I kind of went on a 5-year hiatus. And
You say 5-year hiatus.
Yeah.
You went on a 5-year capious.
Capious, I did. I really
You were a
did.
fugitive.
I was a fugitive.
All right. So the court basically said you stopped going to your probation, and
Yeah,
the court
so,
issued
yeah.
a warrant for your arrest for
Issued
5 years.
5 years. Yeah.
Where were you during those 5 years?
Just working, still fighting my addiction. You know, still fighting my addiction, and then and finally in 2015, we ran into each other.
Okay.
So they gave me 15 months. I served 10 of it,
Okay.
and came home to a halfway house in 2017.
All right. And since that time, have you had some additional issues?
Yeah, I had I came home, and you know, old habits is hard to break at sometimes. So I had a prescription. I had ordered some prescription glasses. I went to Lens Crafters.
And Mr. Sibley, let me tell you this. You don't have to go into the details of it.
Okay.
But ultimately, you had an issue.
I had an
And
issue,
you caught a theft.
and I
case.
caught a theft case.
All right.
Yeah.
And you
so-
pled guilty to it.
And I pled guilty to it because I did it. You know what I mean? And so and I've been dealing with it. You know, probation is coming up, and it's coming to a close.
So, in 2015, you ultimately said you ended up going to prison.
Yeah, I went to Grafton.
10 of the
10 months.
15-month sentence.
Yeah,
Okay.
10 months down to
And
Grafton.
Mr. Sibley, let me just kind of interrupt you for a second. Terry here has to take down what we're saying.
Okay.
So if I start asking a question,
Okay.
you have to wait till I finish.
Okay.
Because if you start talking before I do, she can't take both of us down, okay?
Okay.
Others should be mad at me, not you. So. All right. So let's talk about 2015. Okay. Before you went to prison, do you remember when you went to prison?
Yeah. March. I was sentenced March 15th, 2016.
16. Okay.
Yeah.
So from March of 2016,
Mm-hmm.
for 10 months, you were in prison.
I was in prison.
And you obviously, we're here because of the fire at 719 Fultz.
Yes, sir.
So you were in prison when that took place.
Yes, sir.
Prior to you going to prison, did you visit Lindell at his home?
Yeah, I at his brother's request. Greg called me for quite a few times. He called me. He needed my services over there at his brother's house. And so I was so busy, I didn't get to him right away. It took me a couple of days. And then I finally called Lindell, and I met and went over to Lindell's house. I don't know, I mean, it's so long ago, I don't remember the exact date or anything like that, but I know it was real close to me getting sentenced, you know, so.
And at some point in 2015, prior to this,
Right.
didn't you do some jail time?
In 2015. I think the only jail time I did was just the sentence that was coming up.
All right.
Yeah.
Were you in jail when Greg was trying to get a hold of you?
No, you know what? As a matter of fact, I was in the county jail for a couple of days.
Okay.
I remember that. I was in the county jail for a couple of days. No, I wasn't. I wasn't in the county jail at the time. He was calling me, and he kept calling me, and I was working. And then I finally got in touch with him, and then he told me what he needed me to do, and then I went by Lindell's house, and me and Lindell sat and talked, and yeah.
And so what month, if you recall, was it that you would have went to Lindell's house?
I probably want to say February.
All right.
It would have been February.
All right. And when you went to Lindell's house, what was it you were supposed to be doing?
He wanted me to install some security cameras on his house.
Okay. And at that time, had Lindell, he had some health problems, correct?
Yeah, he had health issues.
All right. And were you aware of his hip issues?
You know, me and him had talked, and I knew that he was having surgery on his hips coming up.
Okay. It was coming up.
Yeah.
And so, at that point, can you describe his mobility at that point?
He had a walker, one of those walkers that you sit in, and so whenever we moved around the house. He had it with him, and then from the time we went from inside the house to the front porch, you know, so we could talk about where we wanted to install these cameras and stuff. He always, and then he would turn it around and then sit on it. Yeah.
All right. And so you sat with him on the porch.
Yes, sir.
And he went over with you and discussed with you the job that you were supposed to do
Yes.
in installing those cameras.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. During that discussion, was there a point in time where somebody drove by that became of, I guess, interest, so to speak?
He as we were talking, and something disturbed his conversation. We was conversating, and we had a good conversation going on, where we wanted the cameras and all this other stuff. And then a neighbor pulled up, drove down, pulled up into the driveway. His voice got a little low, and he started getting a little jittery, a little nervous. Because now I'm gonna go back. Because that particular day, when I pulled up, it was somebody had knocked his windows out of the house and the windows out of the front door. So they were being repaired at the same time.
All right. So that had happened.
Well, that was taking place at the same time that we were doing what we were doing. So I was kind of really looking at this thing because I didn't know at that particular time the reason why I was installing the cameras, because I install cameras all the time.
All right. And without saying about the conversation, did Lindell tell you why he wanted the camera?
Yeah, he did.
No, and don't tell us why.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Right.
He
And
did.
so he tells you why.
Right.
And does he talk to you and discuss with you where he wants those cameras and what?
Oh yeah. The focus was just like, you know, all the damage to Lindell's house was always on that right side of the house, that right front corner of the porch, and so he wanted those. He wanted 3 cameras was to be facing that way.
All right. And so did you put those cameras facing?
Yeah, I did exactly what he asked me to do.
All right. And when the neighbor, you said there was a neighbor that drove by and pulled into the driveway. Let me ask you, look at the State's Exhibit, forgetting the number 12. This is State's Exhibit number 12. Do you recognize this?
Yes, sir.
All right. So if this is Fultz and this is Hillcrest, where would Lindell's house be? And you can use the pointer if you want. Are you using? I can't see.
I'm not pointing because I'm trying to recognize and identify the neighborhood.
Okay, so this is East Avenue?
I know that. It's
Okay.
East Avenue. The car came from this way, around the corner. So it's somewhere, we were sitting in the house somewhere over here, or Lindell's house.
Okay, 719 Fultz?
Yeah, it's one of these houses right here.
Okay.
And then, like I said, we were sitting on the front porch, and when he looked and saw, he looked over his shoulder, and then his conversation stopped for a while, and he wanted to tell us something, and he started telling us something, but,
All right.
you know what I mean?
And
But I knew it was a problem though, because nobody's windows, and why are you repairing your windows in your door?
All right.
You know, that's
Look,
my question.
so how did you see where the person went?
Because my back was to, Linda was sitting kind of right on this side, and my back was to the banister.
You're pointing at the different house.
Yeah, my back was to the banister.
Okay.
And then so when he looked, I looked.
All right. And so what did you see?
I saw a gentleman and a younger kid get out of a vehicle.
What kind of vehicle?
Again, at this stage of the game, I can't even really remember.
All right. And where did they go?
Actually, the gentleman stood there for a minute.
Well, he was driving.
Yeah, he was driving, and then when he got out, he kind of stood, and
Hold on just a second. Where did he drive to?
he pulled up in the driveway of the house.
What driveway did he pull into?
See, I can hear again, that's so long ago, I can't remember which driveway it was, because my emphasis really wasn't on that particular, I was there to do a job for him.
All right. And then do you, so at that point in time, do you have a conversation with Lindell?
Yeah, I did.
All right?
You know.
During that conversation, I want to know what he said, but what was the conversation about a particular person?
Yeah, he got highly agitated.
Who got highly agitated?
Lindell he got very agitated.
All right.
And he said, you know,
Don't tell us what he said.
All right, okay.
All right. So when you said agitated, describe what that
Tears and almost tears in his eyes.
All right.
You know, almost, you know, I had to reach over. I distinctly remember today reaching over, touching him on the shoulder.
All right. And was that reaction to the person who had driven by?
Yeah, because they were starting to stare at each other.
At that point in time, were any words said between the two of them?
I heard some mumbling.
All right.
You know, I heard some, you know, Linda was growling a little bit, and I heard some mumbling, you know, because he had a lot of activity going on in his porch because they was fixing the windows and the doors, plus me and my partner was there.
So you had a partner with you to install these?
Yes, sir.
And did you guys do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. And let me just ask you about the cameras themselves. Who bought the cameras?
Lindell's son did.
All right. And when you put them up, were they able to work it or function at that point?
No, they didn't function at that particular time because the system that he had wasn't compatible with it. So I guess the son took a little longer getting the system, and I was going to come back and wire everything and put it together. But, you know, my time came up, and I had to go turn myself in.
So before his son, was it a TV that he needed, a new TV?
Yeah, he needed a TV that was compatible, a modern day TV. Okay. Lindell had an older TV.
And so he needed to buy that, but before he bought that, you ended up going to serve your time.
Yeah, I ended up going to serve my time.
And that would have been in March, you did?
Yeah, it would have been March 15th.
So tell us, did you ultimately put up those cameras?
Yeah, I put them. I installed them.
And how many cameras did you install?
I installed 4.
And where were the 4 cameras?
The 4 cameras was like, okay, on the back, I installed one on the back side of the house facing out. I installed another one by the door facing this way. And then I had a 3rd one right here in this area facing the front door.
All right.
And then I had it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. And they was all facing in that direction right there in this corner over here.
And were any of them facing this house?
Yeah, they was all facing this way right here. Everything was protecting this side of the house over here. Everything was facing that way.
All right. I'm showing you what I've marked as State's Exhibit number 27. Oh, I'm sorry. State's Exhibit number 27. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, that's it in the back side.
Okay, so when you say that's it, what do you mean?
That's one of the cameras I installed in the back.
And could you show us where in that one on here?
On the back side of the house over here.
All right, and it's facing this
and it's
direction.
facing that direction there.
And then same with State's Exhibit number 28. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I remember that camera too. Let me see.
Is it the same?
No, this is a different camera. Yeah. Is that? No, that's the same camera. There.
This is just a closer
Yeah,
up
that's
of
a
this
closer
one.
version of
All
that
right.
camera.
Your Honor, may I publish it?
Mm-hmm.
So this was State's Exhibit number 27, and if you could, I believe that was the camera you said you installed.
Yes, sir.
All right, and then this would be a close-up of that camera.
Yeah, that's a close-up of it.
All right. And we can see that it's facing down the side of the house.
Down the side of the house.
Is that 28?
The second one I'm showing now is 28 inches. And those were put there at the instructions of Lindell.
Yes, sir.
While you were, first of all, how long did it take you guys to put the cameras up?
Probably about an hour and some minutes.
All right, and during that hour period of time, did anything happen during that period?
You know, other than us just, you know, he kind of went in and calmed down a little bit.
He being Lindell?
Lindell did, yeah, he kind of went in and calmed down a little bit.
Okay. And did you ever see the person who got out of the car?
I got a chance to look at, I got a chance to glance, I got a chance to see who it was.
And did you see him again after that, after being on the porch and seeing him, did you see him again?
When I was on the porch,
No.
you talking about when I was on the front porch, or when Lindell was on the front porch?
You and Lindell were on the front porch
Right,
together.
Right,
You told us that you saw a car come by which had Lindell react.
right.
You saw that vehicle, you saw the person pull in, get out with the little girl, and then they stared at each other and mumbled.
Yeah, and then for some reason,
A-
okay,
After that,
right.
did you see that person that was in that car or truck again?
Yeah,
When did that happen?
kind of right there in the middle of the street.
When?
Somewhere in the process of us beginning to get our equipment to install these cameras.
All right. So now you're not with Lindell. You're getting ready to do your job,
Yeah.
and you see this person again.
Yeah, because I don't know if he's just trying to see what we doing.
So what
You know,
happened?
I just kind of really ignored the whole situation at that point.
So
You
nothing
know,
happened.
Nothing happened that,
Lindell wasn't there. Nothing happened.
No, he wasn't there at that one.
All right.
I mean, but I do, like I said, I can't, it's so long ago, I can't remember when, I remember they was growling at each other, some other stuff like that in the street or something like that, I don't know.
Well, let's talk about that, Mr. Sibley. You've said that they're riling about each other in the street.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, Linda was sitting on the front porch, and I don't know if the gentleman was sitting there observing what we were doing or whatever the case may be, but, whatever had took place the night before still piqued somebody's interest, it still piqued their interest. Because like I said, they was fixing the windows and the doors at the same time that we were moving around. And they were pretty much finishing up. You know what I mean? And then Lindell's son pulled up.
All right. Mr. Sibley, do you recall testifying on a prior occasion?
Yeah.
All right. And do you recall at that prior occasion talking about the vehicle?
Yeah, sustained. Lay the proper foundation.
Mr. Sibley, you indicated when I asked about the vehicle, the type vehicle that this person was driving, you said you can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember to this day.
Is there anything that I could show you that would refresh your recollection as to what the type
I
of
know it
vehicle
was a truck. I know it was a truck of some kind.
Yeah, listen to the question, Mr. Sibley. Answer the question. Is there anything that Mr. Raprenzi could provide you that would refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay.
If he has a picture of it.
Ask the question, Mr. Raprenzi.
Mr. Sibley, you just indicated something about a truck. What are you telling us?
Again, like I said, that was a long time ago. As far as the details of it, that's a long time ago. I just remember the individual and the child for the most part.
So why did you just say it was a truck?
Well, because I remember it was a bigger vehicle. I knew it wasn't a car.
Okay. Mr. Sibley, do you recall Lindell saying anything to this man during the time period that you were at his house putting up the cameras?
Again, I remember some light grumbling going on between the two.
When was this happening?
Me and Chandler was installing the back cameras. When we was installing the back camera, we kind of really heard something. And this was just before we was unloading the equipment. We was taking the equipment back to the back of the house. We was going to do the back camera first and work our way up. And, we just heard some, Linda was very agitated again, very agitated. And I just heard some light grumbling. I didn't hear the exact words and nothing like that, but again, I knew Linda was upset again. I remember. It's just.
And you said you light grumbling. Who was it light grumbling between?
You could just hear growling.
Mr. Sibley.
It was like a growler.
Mr. Sibley. You said you heard some light grumbling.
Right.
The question is, the grumbling was between Mr. Lindell Lewis and who?
And his neighbor.
All right. The person that you saw drive
The
by.
person that I saw driving up.
And did you hear then Mr. Lindell say anything derogatory toward that person?
Oh yeah, he said it, but
I'm just asking you, did he say something derogatory?
Yes, he did.
And could you tell us what it is he said?
I can't really remember. I know it wasn't nice. He was upset. I know he wasn't nice.
Was it, did he swear at her?
Yeah.
All right, so you finished that job, and you went and you ultimately ended up going to do your prison sentence.
Yes, sir.
During that period of time, you somehow learned while you were in prison. Did you learn while you were in prison that Lindell's house had been was on fire or had caught on fire?
My first stop every morning was to the library, and I used to go read the Akron Beacon Journal. And in the process of reading the Akron Beacon Journal, that was the headlines on the newspaper. And I kind of had a panic attack. I froze up and I couldn't. I was kind of really mad. I was upset at that.
All right.
Because
so you saw the article. Did it have some photographs in it?
Yeah, I had a photograph of the house and the young lady in it.
And when you said the young lady in it?
Yeah, the young lady that pairs with him in the fire.
All right. And do you know who that was?
I had only met her once. I didn't know her personally.
Okay. Do you remember her name at all?
No, I can't remember her, not at this particular time.
So you're in prison. After you get out of prison, what then do you do?
I was in the halfway house, and the detective, me and the detective, we reached out, the detectives in the case, we reached out to each other in that case. And we talked about it, and we talked about it, and then time went by, and then, the other incident happened.
Talking about the fire in 2017.
Yeah, 2017.
And then what did you do?
I strongly pursued it because it didn't make any sense to me.
And when you say you strongly pursued it, what do you mean?
Well, because
no, not why, when. What did you do?
I think I want to say I sat down with the detectives in the first case a little bit more, and we started talking about, what it was that I knew about the case, or what I felt like I knew about the case.
So you told them about what you remembered from that other incident?
Yeah.
All right.
That was a rough, that was a rough 6-7 months
All right.
after the incident happened. Being incarcerated and nothing that I could do about it.
Mr. Sibley, I'm going to show you a couple pictures. First, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number, previously identified as State's Exhibit number 26. Do you recognize that at all?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize that?
I just, she used to come by and look at me.
No, who? Who is it?
I'm not sure what her name is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how do you know who it is then? Who she
Well, because she was always there for him. She used to always make sure that he was okay.
is? So if you don't know her name, who is she to you?
She would just be a friend, I guess.
To who?
To Linda.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is Lindell's.
Lindell's friend. Yeah, that's Lindell's friend.
Okay.
Yeah, that's her.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 15. Do you recognize that?
Oh, yeah, that's my buddy.
And
That's Linda.
that's Lindell?
That's Linda.
Okay. Mr. Sibley, the individual that back in 2015, when you were putting up the cameras, the individual that you said was a neighbor of Lindell's, that they had some mumblings and that Lindell had reacted to. Do you see that person in court here today?
Yes, I do.
Could you please point him out and describe what he's wearing?
This gentleman sitting here with the striped shirt on, with the dreadlocks in his hair.
Your Honor, we'd ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified Mr. Ford.
The record will show.
Thank you, Judge. I have nothing.
Mr. Foreman?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir.
My name is Joe Gorman. This is Scott Riley. Together we represent Mr. Ford.
Okay.
I'm going to have some questions for you, and much like the prosecutor, I want to make sure you understand the question before you answer it. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
All right. If I ask a question that you don't understand, just kindly ask me to rephrase it or repeat it before you answer it. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You came into this courtroom about 16, 17 months ago or so and sat in that very chair before and were asked questions. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
All right. And the prosecutor asked you some questions and I asked you some questions. You remember that? Yes, sir?
I do. Yes, I do.
All right. You see that lady there with the blue mask on that's taking things down?
Yes, sir.
That's the court reporter.
Yes, sir.
She was here then too.
Okay.
And she recorded everything that you said from that witness stand last time, much like she's doing today, okay? Yes, sir?
Yes, sir.
I have a copy of the things that you said that day, okay, with me, provided to me by her. If at any point in time when I'm questioning you, I start talking about what you said back then, and you want to check yourself before answering to see if it helps refresh your memory as to what you said then, okay? If you ask me, I will provide you a copy with this. Is that fair?
That's not a problem.
All right, just let me know, okay? In 2017, this detective here, Troy Looney, met with you. Do you remember doing that?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I believe at the end of that conversation, Tanisha Stewart, Detective Tanisha Stewart, also a female detective, joined that conversation. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I kind of remember that a little
Okay.
bit.
Did you know that they were audio and video recording your statement while you were giving it?
I don't know. Probably they had to have my authorization to do so, right?
No.
Okay.
No, they didn't have to have your authorization. Where did that conversation take place, if you remember? Akron Police Department?
Akron Police Department, somewhere like that.
Okay, probably up in the Detective Bureau?
Probably in the detective bureau.
Okay. So, you talked about your, I'm not going to get into much of it, but you talked about your past as it relates to your own record, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you were honest about that, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had some, I think you talked about some theft charges, correct?
Yes, sir.
And would you agree with me, sir, that those theft charges and those mistakes that you made were probably driven by your own drug addiction?
Probably 100%. Probably.
Okay, that's probably a fair statement, right?
Yeah.
You told the police in 2017, at least you had a goal back then, after you had gotten out of prison, you had a goal of maybe being a drug counselor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But certainly, and you've been forthright, you've acknowledged your own drug addiction over the years, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that an ongoing thing for you, or is that habit kicked?
I'm okay. I'm okay with myself today.
Okay, good, good. When we were here last, you talked about, even though you were clean and sober at that time, 17 months ago, that you still had your ear to the streets. You remember using that term?
I mean, I don't recall using it, but
What does ear to the streets mean
well, I mean,
to you?
to me, I've nephews and nieces out here.
Okay,
You know what I mean? And I mean, that's what I know. I know that's what I know,
okay,
and I'm good with that.
okay,
I'm good with the people.
Sure.
I'm okay with that.
sure.
Not in a negative way. I'm okay with that.
I didn't suggest it was a negative
okay.
way.
Yeah, I'm
But
okay
you,
with that.
you certainly, based on your past experience, can recognize people that are drug addicts, correct?
Not always.
Well, do you recall
Not
testifying?
always. Not always.
All right. Well, you knew that the two gentlemen that lived in the basement at,
Oh, of course.
yes, okay.
100%.
Well, let me finish the question,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You knew the two people that lived in the basement at Lindell Lewis's house prior to you going to prison. You knew they were drug addicts, correct?
I didn't know them personal. I didn't know them personally. I never met them personally because that section of the house was blocked off. So I didn't know. I knew some people lived in the basement. I didn't know who lived in the basement.
You knew they were drug addicts in the basement, didn't you?
Yeah, I knew that
How did you know that?
because, I mean, I knew a couple of people, like you said, that used to go in and out of the basement. I knew people that used to go in and out of that basement.
So, how did you know the people that lived in that basement were drug addicts?
I didn't know that they lived in the basement. I know they used to frequent the house.
Well, you told us last time that they lived in the basement and they were drug addicts.
Well,
did you not?
listen, the one person that I identified don't live in the basement. I never met the gentleman that lived in the basement. The person that they used to come to the house to visit, the gentleman in the basement, she was a female and she used to come visit the gentleman in the basement.
How did you know that?
I mean, I just sitting on the front porch talking to Linda a lot.
And you saw a lot of traffic going in and
I
out?
only saw one person go in and out of that basement.
You saw one
I
person?
saw one person. I saw a female person go in and out of that basement. And I knew her past, and I knew of her.
Sir, I'm going to hand you what I believe to be the transcript of your testimony on page 40 from last time. I want you to take a look at it. Is that fair?
I'm online. It might just be more helpful.
Apologize, Judge. You can start on line 3 and go down. Actually, you could read the whole page.
Okay, so what are you asking me? with that? I answered everything you just asked me in that.
Well, I'll ask you again, sir. Did
Yes,
you
sir.
not tell this detective in 2017 that the people that were down in that
But
basement?
I'm not telling you nothing. But I'm not telling you nothing that you didn't already know.
Mr. Sibley, Terrance Sibley, look at me. Sir, I'm speaking to you. When there's an objection, you will not answer. Everything he said after the objection is stricken from the record. The jury is ordered to disregard whatever Mr. Sibley was just saying as non-responsive and come to sidebar. Okay, the objection's overruled to the extent that, Mr. Gorman, you may proceed as to what we discussed at sidebar.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Sibley, sorry. But I understand, and everyone's emotions are high in this case, but when I tell you to stop, you need to stop until I rule. All right? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Gorman.
Mr. Sibley, back 17 months ago, you were asked by me, were you pursuing the possibility of becoming a drug counselor when you talked to the police? And you said, yes, sir, yes, sir. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
I further asked you, so you had an interest in that, correct? And you said, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I then asked you, can you recognize addiction, correct? And you said, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I said, you told the police in May of 2017 that the people that were hanging out at Lindell Lewis's house were drug addicts, correct? And you answered yes, did you not?
I probably did.
Well, do you want to see it again?
No, I don't need to say it again. I probably did say that.
And I said, you know that based on your experience having prior been one. And you said yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
I asked you, did you actually witness them do the drugs? And you said, I've seen, you know, one thing about myself, I don't stray far from, even though I clean myself up. You know what I mean? My ears are still close to the street, and I still see what I see, and I know what I know. Do you recall that?
Probably.
Would you like to see it?
No, I don't need to see it again.
So the answer is yes, you said it.
Yes, sir. We should ask the question you want to ask.
Hold on. You're talking until you're asked the question. If there's anything to clear up, Mr. Lopez, will clear it up for you after Mr. Gorman's finished.
I asked, or you were asked by the prosecutor then, and did Lindell ever have other people at the house? And you said, yeah, he had people there. He had a gentleman, I never met him, but I knew he lived in the basement. You recall that?
I just said that.
But then the gentleman in the basement would have other frequent visitors that came a lot, you know. Do you remember that?
We just had this conversation.
I'm just asking you to
But
answer
we
the
just
question.
had this conversation.
Sir, did you say it or didn't
We
you?
just had this conversation.
Mr. Sibley.
Didn't we just have this conversation?
Mr. Sibley, look at me. Mr. Sibley, answer the question.
I'm answering the question.
No,
Yes, yes.
They would come out and sit on the porch, or they would just come in, you know, in and out, and go in the basement and visit the gentleman who lived in the basement. You recall that, sir?
Yes, I do.
And then I asked, or the prosecutor asked, and the people who were there that were visiting the gentleman in the basement, would you describe those people? And your answer was, you know, they was street people. A lot of them was street people. A lot of them used drugs. You know, they need a place to come hang out and stuff like that. You know. You recall that, sir?
Yes, I do remember that. It's a joke.
told the police about a woman that was going frequently into that basement. Do you remember telling the police that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you said she was walking the streets on the west side. Do you recall telling them that?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
She's walking up and down the streets every day, doing it to this day.
What is she doing walking the streets?
I don't know. I'm not holding hands with her, sir. I don't know what she's doing.
Well,
I have no idea.
well, 17 months ago.
I have no idea.
Mr. Sibley, wait for the question.
17 months ago when you sat in that chair under oath, did you not tell us that she was walking the streets asking people for money?
Yeah, people frequently give her money all the time. Lindell used to give her money.
So you do know what she's doing on the street?
Yeah, but I'm not holding hands with her. I don't know what she's doing. I haven't seen her do anything. I just see her out there every day.
I'm going to talk to you, sir, about not who in the past was your supplier of drugs, but when you purchase drugs and you have an addiction, you have a drug dealer that would sell you the drugs. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Anybody who has an addiction on the street has to get their drugs from a source, correct?
Yes, sir.
It would be fair to call that source, those sources, drug dealers, correct?
Of course.
Drug dealers are not in the business, are they, sir, of giving people drugs for free. They sell them to them, don't they?
Of course.
In fact, that goes back to your situation because you got, unfortunately, addicted to those drugs. You needed to do things in order to get money to get those drugs, correct?
Of course.
Drug dealers sometimes will front people drugs and they'll owe them money, correct?
Yes.
In other words, the addict sometimes, if they have a relationship with a drug dealer, they can try and get the drug dealer to give them some up front and then they'll owe them some money, correct?
Yes, sir.
Drug dealers don't take very kindly to not getting repaid. Is that fair?
Probably not.
Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Sir, I appreciate you answering my questions this afternoon. At this point in time, I don't have any further. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Sibley, I want you to bear with me for a minute.
Yeah.
I want you to listen very carefully to my questions. Answer only the question I ask. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sibley, is it fair to say that you are very angry today?
Yes, sir.
You're acting angry.
Yes.
You have a nephew that played football at Hoban recently. Is that fair?
Yes.
He was recently murdered.
That's the cousin.
Your cousin, his cousin.
My nephew, the father of the one that plays at Liberty University. He was gunned down.
He was just killed
He was just
recently.
killed.
And your daughter was just shot 3 times.
She was shot 3 times the very next morning.
So you got a lot going on in your life right now.
Yes, sir.
And is it fair to say that you cared a lot for Mr. Lindell?
Yes, sir.
Or Lindell Lewis?
Yes, I did.
I have nothing further, Judge.
You may step down, Mr. Sibley. Put your mask back on and you can exit through that door. Thank you.
Yep, right.
Judge, can we come quickly inside?
Yes. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Call your next witness.
We're going
And
to call dispatcher Brian Cresswell.
thank you. The next four are law enforcement, so you're permitted to photograph. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Disregard number one. No audio, no videos. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Go ahead and have a seat. If you'll keep your voice up and speak into the microphone so we can hear your testimony.
So you can take your mask off. Thank you.
Oh, yes, sorry. That's
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury by stating your first name and spelling your last name for the record, please?
My name is Brian Cresswell Jr. Last name is Cresswell.
Mr. Cresswell, can you tell the jury where it is that you're employed?
I was employed with the City of Akron as a 911 dispatcher.
Okay. Are you currently employed with them?
No,
Okay. And where are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Regional Emergency Dispatch Center, which is also in Stark County.
Okay. How long were you employed with the Akron Police Department as a dispatcher?
Since 2014,
And you worked from 2014 to what date for the Akron Police Department?
June 21st of 2021,
All right. And now you work with another dispatch center located where?
Stark County.
Okay. And what do your duties entail as a dispatcher?
Taking calls for service from the public and dispatching police and fire services.
And can you briefly describe the process of how you take a 911 call at the dispatch center?
We answer the phone, ascertain the location and nature of the call, put that information into the computer and ship it to dispatch so that they can send the appropriate response.
Okay, so you're a call taker, and then you get the call, and then you send it to a dispatcher.
Correct.
Fair? Okay. All right, Mr. Cresswell, I'd like to draw your attention to April 18th of 2016. Do you recall that date?
Yes,
Were you working in your capacity as a dispatcher for the Akron Police Department on that date?
yes,
And did you have a chance to, did you have an opportunity to receive some 911 calls regarding a fire located at 719 Fultz Avenue?
yes.
Okay, and is that located in what city, county, and state, sir?
Akron, Summit County, Ohio.
Do you recall what time you received the call off the top of your head?
It was in the early hours of the morning.
Okay. How many calls did you specifically receive, Mr. Cresswell?
I believe I took 2.
The callers who called 911, can you just describe their demeanor for the jury?
They were obviously stressed out about it. You could hear the excitement and panic in their voice, which indicates to us that the incident is real and occurring and the severity of it.
Based on what, without telling us what they said to you, but based on what they said to you, were they relaying an event that was occurring or it just occurred?
Yes, in progress.
And are your calls recorded?
Yes,
Were these calls recorded?
yes,
Are they recorded in the regular course of the business activity of the Akron Police Department?
yes,
Is it the regular course of the Akron Police Department to record 911 calls like this?
yes.
Okay. All right, I'll play for you the first 911 call that's going to be marked as State's Exhibit number 29.
Conversation recorded on April 18, 2016 at 3:39 on Channel 8.
Dispatcher Cresswell, that first voice you just heard, it was a female voice, but then this first voice that says Akron Police, do you recognize that voice?
Yes.
Whose voice is that?
Mine.
Okay.
I have a fire on Fifth Avenue. Next to the Alice through a rocket project. How?
What's the address?
It's poison, man. It's poison. It's up here quick.
What's the address?
It's 725 is next door. I can feel a heat. The lights are going out. He's burning quick, man. If somebody's in there, they're dead, man.
Okay,
You want to get up here real quick.
Go on.
Dispatcher Cresswell, is that your voice again?
Yes.
And you said Akron Police? Okay.
Yes, it's a house on fire off East Avenue.
Okay, go on away.
Oh, okay.
Now, Dispatcher Cresswell, in that 911 call, you didn't get a lot of information from the caller. Can you tell the jury why?
Typically, when there's an incident like this, we're overloaded with 911 calls. So we'd already had a lot of pertinent information at that point. Other call takers in the room taking the same calls. We're trying to free up those lines and get them off the phone as quick as possible.
So you can take other calls.
Yes.
Akron Police.
Oh, I got a fire going. I'm supposed to have a full name call. I think there's people in the house.
Okay, go on away.
Oh my God.
Okay. Dispatcher Cresswell, I'm going to play to you another series of calls that's going to be marked as State's Exhibit number 30.
Conversation recorded on April 18th, 2016 at 3:42 on Channel 8.
Are you probably a fire truck on full?
Yeah, go on away.
Okay.
Okay, Judge, I don't have any other questions for Dispatcher Cresswell.
No question?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Cresswell, you may step down. Do you, is Ferguson here?
Yes.
Why don't we do that one? 5 minutes witness.
Can we approach while he's getting witness?
Sure. I'll put the form out. The form, yes or no?
She's a yes.
Okay. You're fine, David, thank you. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Go ahead. Well, I'd say go ahead and have a seat, but you already said. So make sure you speak up into the microphone, keep your voice up so we can hear your testimony.
Ma'am, good afternoon. Can you please state your full name, spell your last name for the record, please?
It's Michelle Ann Ferguson, Ferguson.
And can you tell the jury where you're employed?
City of Akron, Dispatch Center, 911.
And what do you do for them?
I answer phone calls. I'm a dispatcher and a call taker.
How long have you been a dispatcher and a call taker for the City of Akron Police Department?
Almost 8 years.
Okay. And what do your duties entail as a 911 dispatcher?
Answering the phone, helping the citizens, sometimes just asking questions. Then I dispatch, get the calls out, either police, fire, or EMS.
Okay. And I'd like to draw your attention to April 18th of 2016. Do you recall that time frame or that date?
Yes.
Were you working in your capacity as a dispatcher for 911 for the Akron Police Department? On that
Yes, I was.
And did you take some 911 calls in regards to a fire that was occurring on Fultz Avenue?
Yes.
Okay. And when you received those calls, can you tell the jury about the demeanor of the callers?
Everybody's upset and frantic, you know.
House is on fire, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And were they relaying to you an event that was occurring or had recently occurred?
Yes.
Okay. The call that you took, was it recorded?
Yes.
Kept in the regular course of the business activity of the Akron Police Department?
Yes.
Is it the regular practice of the Akron Police Department to keep calls such as this?
Yes.
Record them as they come in?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to play for you the call at this time.
What's it, Mark?
This is going to be marked State's Exhibit number 31.
Conversation recorded on April 18th, 2016 at 3:39 on Channel 6.
Akron 911, what's the location of your emergency? There's a house on fire up here on 4th Street. What address? Do you know the address or the cross street? I think it's 712. I'm not sure. It's Hillcrest and 4th Street. And I don't think so. Are you in Ferguson or are you in Akron? Akron. Oh man. I heard it. I heard it. Akron for 1571 and a half East Avenue. The house is right in the back of it. Oh man, is it going? They're just getting all the fire department right now.
I am the fire department.
I'm just talking to the. Oh man.
Okay.
Oh, this thing is. I heard a lot. Dang. And I looked out and here's the house is going.
Okay. It looks like it's both right behind you. Is the bolt right behind you, the road?
Yes. Okay, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, that's where it's at on poles. Okay, do you know if anybody's in the house or if it's,
Oh yeah, the house is full of people.
okay, all right. We got
One guy just ran out.
okay, all right.
One guy's gonna go get a wheelchair over there.
Okay, all right, sir, we'll get them over there right over to them, okay? They're on their way over there. Okay, what's your name? What's your name?
Okay, Judge, I don't have any other questions.
Norman?
On behalf of the defense, no questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Ferguson, thank you. You're excused. Okay, yeah, you go this way. Yeah, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 2:25. We have a couple witnesses left for the day, so we're going to go ahead and take our afternoon break. I'll remind you of the admonition, but before I do, I want to explain a couple things. Mr. LaCruzzi's questions of Mr. Sibley regarding what is going on in his life has absolutely no bearing and is irrelevant to any of the testimony about what happened in April of 2016 and his knowledge. The purpose of those questions were to give you insight into his demeanor here today. You use that for whatever reason you use it for in judging his credibility, okay? And so with that, I'll remind you, don't talk about the case amongst yourselves, don't talk about it with anyone else, don't let anyone else talk about it in your presence. If they do, report it to me or Mr. Masich immediately, and then if you'll be back in the jury room at 20 minutes to 3, we'll proceed with the following testimony of additional witnesses.
All rise, please. We don't catch face down in chairs.
I forgot that part. All right, we're adjourned. So if you guys can just, if your next two are here, get their information regarding the media before we adjourn. Thank you. Yeah, so 15.